Welcome to the Good Faith Podcast. I'm your host, Curtis Chang. And the Good Faith Podcast is where friends who follow Jesus help each other make sense of the world. And one of the things that many listeners are having trouble making sense of the world is who in the heck to vote for. I know for myself, if I had to go in the lab and design a politician, a national politician, that I feel like I could wholeheartedly and energetically support. I would design somebody that was politically moderate, because in this divided age, we need people who can work across these divisions. I want somebody thoughtful who can really bring not just knee-jerk reactions to issues, but actually think them through. I want somebody who's thinking long-term about things like the budget, which is running away in a crazy fashion. I want somebody who's thinking about strong defense mixed with compassion for the rest of the world. Somebody who's socially compassionate domestically also. Now, you might think I'm describing an alien, but I'm here to describe that such a person, I think, really exists. The person I'm talking today is the former Republican governor of Ohio, John Kasich. In 2016, Governor Kasich was the last man standing in running against Trump in the Republican primaries. And in 2020, he didn't run for president, but he was one of the handful of Republicans who chose to speak at the 2020 Democratic convention to support Biden. Governor Kasich, with all of that fascinating political history behind, you've now written the book, Heaven Help Us: How Faith Communities Inspire Hope, Strengthen Neighborhoods, and Build the Future. Welcome to the Good Faith Podcast, Governor Kasich.
Thanks, Curtis. Thank you very much.
Governor Kasich, I've always been a little, suspicious of books written by politicians, because I always sense that these books are written as platforms.
Right.
It's kind of like groundwork to lay for another political run.
Yeah.
This book did not feel that way. So can you explain what stirred your heart to write this book?
Well, Curtis, I'm suspect of anybody who writes a book on faith. I mean, how many people of faith have let us down? No, I'm just kidding you. I understand that completely. This is actually my second book on faith. My first one was called Every Other Monday. It was about a Bible study here, local, very small. It's not even local now because guys have moved around the country. Formed in 1987 to discuss some of the questions that we asked as men who trying to work their way through the Bible. That book was written right before I became governor, and my people didn't want me to write it or put it out, and I said, forget it, I'm doing it. And then this one was the easy one. I really wanted to give people a handbook of how people could engage in the community, because I believe the power of our country is bottom up, and the power of our country is in community, and we need to re-engage it. And this is sort of a playbook as how you can take some of the things that matter most to you, or issues that really have you like worked up, whether it's the homeless, whether it's poverty, whether it's hunger, whether it's human trafficking. There's a path there for you to be able to use an institution of faith, whether it's a church, a synagogue, or a mosque, to try to drive change and to do good at the local level.
Well, the insight and inspiration for working within religious communities that you are outlining, it strikes me it comes from within you. You're not writing this as a social analyst, writing from the outside. You're writing this from the inside. So before we talk about the various stories and the perspectives, can you share with listeners, what is that journey? Like, what is your spiritual journey that led you to this?
Well, when I was just a youngster, I was very involved in the church. But then when I went to college, I drifted away. And then in 1987, when my mother and father were killed by a drunk driver, I had a minister that urged me to go through the window of opportunity to figure out how I felt vis-a-vis these issues that we're discussing today. And I went through that window in 1987, and I'm on the other side, and I'm still there, still trying to figure everything out. And this book was just a natural thing for me. I actually started this back in the days of COVID, because I knew pastors were under pressure to talk about politics in the pulpit, which is, I don't like. And so I tried to get a bunch of theologians together to define what it meant to be a believer. And that group was so difficult to even agree to a sentence that my friend said, why don't you just go ahead and write a book? And this was just a natural outgrowth of all of it, and something that I'd had in my head because I've been a believer in bottom up from the beginning. And so this really, as you go through it, it's a way for people to think about what they might want to do in their lives that can make a difference in the way the world works. And the faith institutions offer a clubhouse, for how people can get material support, get support from others, to get some psychological support for whatever it is they want to create. And so, no big deal. I mean, I don't know if I'll write another book on faith. Who knows? I might, but it's just stuff that comes to you, right? It's not, you don't plan it or scope it out. It's just something that I think about.
Well, before we came on, you and I were talking about how, there's a kind of suspicion of books about faith. And I would say for myself, one of the suspicions about a book of faith is when it is written by somebody who has not suffered. And you've just adverted to some profound suffering in your life. And there are many of our listeners who are currently going through various forms of suffering, whether it's related to the political division or something else. Can you shed light a little more about that particular pivotal moment in your spiritual life where you actually had to make sense of suffering?
Yeah, I mean, it was really because I had a lot of good people around me. And I was urged to engage in this because it seemed to me to make sense for me to figure out, as a young man who had started sort of in the faith community and just completely drifted away, it made sense to try to get meaning out of life. And how I was just so devastated by it all, how was I going to survive? How was I going to put one foot in front of the other? And that led to two things. It led to the discovery of faith, and it led to a discovery about John Kasich. Who is this guy? What is he all about? And that was really great too. So it's made me free and fun. And, so both of those things really have made a difference. And for people who do suffer, I used to try to give them perspective or whatever. I've just kind of decided that they don't really need me to say much any more than Job's friends needed to say much. First, it's and I'm sorry. It's like trying to get on the floor in the mud puddle where they are, in a way. Just show them that you care about them. And for those who do suffer, one of the people I really love is Helmut Thielicke, who's written so many books, the old German preacher who really was there during the Nazi era, preached in bombed out churches. He said, all things pass through the hands of God, and that ultimately all things work to the good for those who love God. It's really hard to see when you're in the midst of a full-blown horrible tragedy, and that probably comes later. So you think about a father in Texas who saw his two children swept away in a flood. I don't think he's interested in any conversation. He's just interested in you just being there, right? Being there. And then over time, for me, it sort of came like a thunderbolt out of the sky when I was in the middle of that. But everybody's not going to have that thunderbolt. But over time, I hope that somebody's, in addition to trying to share can't even share the grief, trying to just be there, having a human being around makes a big difference. And then at some point to say, let's try to figure out how we get one foot in front of the other. And maybe here's the way I've done it. But I think we learned from Job that too much talk early on doesn't work. We can't solve all these problems, and I think we can offer prayers for them without even having to tell them that they'd find peace and comfort.
Governor Kasich, as you were talking, I realized, wow, that's you've just articulated one reason why I'm attracted to politicians, political leaders who can in some way articulate a life where they've experienced some kind of suffering, because they know there are some problems in the world that you just can't give an easy answer to. And the thing that I'm most suspicious of the political leaders is is those who just articulate an easy answer that does not capture the complexity of the political moment in the way
Yeah.
that sort of suffering defies simplification of life, God, one's own experience, and so forth.
Well, look, I'm fortunate enough to, for some reason, to be compelled to study and read. And we were talking before we came on about a Tremper Longman, a great biblical scholar. He's somebody that I can call, help to work through some of the mysteries of the scripture, or what I find to be confusion at times, or whatever. But see, what I look for in people, and politics is in many respects very boring to me, particularly now, is when I'm going to invest anything in anybody, I look for character, realizing that none of us really have the greatest character. you know, if you read Genesis, it's one flaw after another by everybody there. And one of my friends was saying, it's so horrible how flawed those people are, and God was using them. And I said, wait a minute, you think they're any worse than we are? We're all flawed. We all lack character and strength. But for those that we can find that exhibit it the best, those are the people that I'm interested in hanging out with. But I think no matter how much we love somebody else, we always find out we're disappointed with something, aren't we?
Sure.
But
Yeah.
that's okay, because we know if they have character, that we can continue the relationship. That's what I care about a lot.
So, Governor Kasich, your character seems to clearly have been shaped by that early tragedy in your life. And then you said that was a window into discovering not only God, but also who you are, who John Kasich is. Connect the dots. How did that lead to discovering that John Kasich was actually somebody who was called to enter the political realm?
Well, that was just one foot in front of the other. And I've always thought about that. And I was in such a hurry. I was a young man in a hurry, as they say, but I kept being successful, and incredibly successful without any reason to be that way. And it was driven by a faith that people who had in me, who were important to help me to be successful. I often think about, well, what the heck was God up to then? Because I wasn't thinking much about him. I mean, he was a rabbit's foot in my pocket. But he has his ways. I don't understand them all, but I'm grateful for what I've had and what I have now. And it's just been fun. It's been good, And one of the things, Curtis, that I worry about the most in our country is the lack of objective truth that seems to be permeating our
Yeah.
entire society. And without objective truth, then I think we find ourselves in a position of where it's everybody for themselves based on what they think. And that does not create a very productive, healthy, positive society.
Yeah. Well, I think the value on objective truth is one reason, and maybe it's not the only reason, for a meme that sort of took place in 2016. Again, you had run for the GOP nomination in that. And following election night in 2016, I don't know if people remember this, but inside the NBA host Ernie Johnson, who's very sort of a key figure for anybody who's following the NBA. In a television moment that went viral, told America that his own, particularly Christian values and conscience, kept him from voting for either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. And instead, he said that only the only way that he could act with a clear conscience was to vote for you, John Kasich.
I'm writing his name down because I've got to call him. Ernie's great. I mean, I don't know what's happened. TNT is going away. I don't know what's going to happen to that great show, but that was very nice of Ernie to say that, you know?
Yeah. And of course, we have no idea how many people followed his lead, but
not enough, that's for sure.
He was clearly stating some frustration that of the options that he had been given, that they were not options that he, as a Christian, felt like he could even subscribe to. So I kind of want to ask you to do some political analysis and just say, what's going on such that neither party can produce somebody that people of faith can really get excited about or resonate with? Like, what are the dynamics both on the left and on the right that's in play?
It's a whole combination of things. It's money. It's about who can rise above the din. It's hard. I mean, it's a gauntlet running for president. And do I think that people of character can be elected to public office? Absolutely. Do I think there are people in public office that have character? Yes. There are people that I don't understand all their challenges, but I think there are people that go in there trying to do well. But you got to remember, we live in a society now where if you're a Democrat, you don't like Republicans, and if you're a Republican, you don't like Democrats. And while you want to say that everybody should get along, it's always kind of like, get along on my terms, not your terms. And so it's the whole milieu of the social media and how does somebody get there, and everybody's picking on everybody. I mean, we know we're all flawed, and if we want to spend our time dwelling on people's flaws, we can bring the whole thing down. But outside of Jesus himself, I can't think of anybody where we're not going to be able to exploit or to describe something that people are going to say, I don't like that, or I don't believe in that. You know, the days of Camelot are over right now, so it makes it difficult. Now, there's things that we can do to fix the system, whether it has to do with fundraising. But at the end of the day, on anything, whether it's, whether it is the insurance company we use or the bank we use, or whether it's the politicians that we're choose from, I mean, it gets down to who do we think has the most amount of character. And we tend to relate all this stuff to the political arena because that is about somebody else. It's not about us. So if you work in an insurance company and the boss tells you need to turn down a lady who really needs the medication or the surgery, and you know it's wrong, what do? I mean, we tend to look at these things like, because politics is easy, that's fun. That's somebody else. It's not us. So I think we need to look in the mirror ourselves and to say, what are we doing to contribute to raising the bar and being a good example and a role model, realizing that we're all idiots, including me.
One of the really interesting things about this book, written by a political figure like yourself, is that it's not about politics. It's really about public engagement.
No, I didn't want any politics in the book. I mean, if I wanted to write a book on politics, I had to write one that was just tearing people down, and that would get attention, but I wasn't going to do that. And look, I'm excited. Somebody told me that in the faith world, my book is doing, pretty well. And I thought that's really cool because, who am I? I didn't go to the Fuller Theological Seminary, or I didn't do any of those things. I'm not trained in theology. I'm just not. But to do a book like this, and the first book, again, was called Every Other Monday. I sent it to people who were very distinguished in the world of theology, and they they loved the book, surprise to me. I didn't know that they were going to really resonate with it, but they did. And, so this is not just the first time, this is the second one. And so it's just great. And it's something I believe in, but putting politics in it would have ruined the book,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and it's books. This book is really structured around each chapter telling the story of somebody engaging in public service, not politics. I don't think there's anybody in there that's running for office. And it just struck me that
Really in community more than
in community,
yeah.
yeah, and we'll get to that, the importance of institutions that you talk about in terms of holding all of this together. But it was very striking to me that, um, when we use the word politics, our imagination immediately goes to some national level far removed from us, something that we watch on TV. And yet when when Jesus says, what's the second greatest commandment? It's to love your neighbor as yourself, which presupposes a neighborhood level of engagement, not a national level of engagement.
Right.
And so what you've told are stories of really neighborhood level of engagement of public service. Can you speak more about that? Like, why did you as a national public figure, why did you dive so deeply into the neighborhood level? What is it about that?
Because I've always believed, I believe the strength, maybe it's because when I was a boy, our neighborhood mattered. And we didn't know any big, important people. I always kind of believed, though, and my parents taught me that you got as much power as anybody else, and you can be whatever you want to be. And so the idea of rising up has always been really attractive to me, and I believe in it. This is not something new. I've been talking about this bottom up approach for 20 years. Now it's starting to catch on, and people are beginning to say, well, maybe we need community. I was telling somebody, Curtis, about bocce. Have you ever played bocce?
Yes, I have.
Curtis,
Yeah.
bocce was made for you. No athletic ability whatsoever. A
All right.
big brain,
Sounds great.
no hand-eye coordination, but you can show up and you can roll this little ball. And when you're rolling this ball with your teammates against these people who are rolling the ball against you, it's a lovely thing. It's nobody's in there talking about who'd you vote for or what do you think about this issue. It's like hanging out. And we like to hang out, we like being with other people like us, getting to know people who are different, people who, are just there. And so bocce is going to save America. I'm going to get a bumper sticker. Bocce saves America. But I think there's a lot to be said for that because it's community. And you never know when you're clustered in community what sparks can occur and what kind of action can come as a result of the sparks.
I wonder if that kind of community engagement can actually help institutions of faith, because you do write about the importance of institutions of faith, but we're living in a time when many Christians are leaving these institutions of faith. And I wonder if partly why they're leaving is because they don't have a cause, they don't have a mission.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, Tim Keller, who I unfortunately never had a chance to talk to or meet, created remarkable things in New York City. And he kept it real, from what I understand. And I have friends, who the Vineyard Church, which the founder of it, or the man who was the pastor and expanded it so many different places. I mean, he did so much good in that church and it grew. I think people are hungry to do a couple things. I think people are hungry to live a life a little bigger than themselves. I think people are hungry to participate in something that builds something positive, of any political party, any philosophy, whatever, any religion. And I think that those things are it's natural to a human being if they give themselves a chance. And I think at the same time, if we're going to an institution that doesn't do anything, where it's just talk and no action, I think we kind of get tired of that. Now, everybody's got different gifts, right? I mean, not everybody's going to be down at the food bank, but people could be, doing many other things that are related to that. And if we see an institution that isn't doing it, then I think we kind of lose interest. Does that make sense to you, Curtis? I
It,
mean, is
it
that,
totally makes sense.
I was thinking about this the other day. I feel so lucky that these things that we're talking about are in my head almost every day. And I reflect on them and I think about them, because it's not just like you show up somewhere and that's the end of it. I mean, we talk about character, this woman that's working for the insurance company that says, no, I'm not going to deny that woman, and fights to get that woman the treatment that she needs. That's an act of faith. So it's like, okay, now that I know this, what is my responsibility? Big and large, big and small.
So, of the stories that you have here of institutions taking responsibility for their neighborhood in the way that you just described, I'm just curious, is there any that just stand out to you as your favorite, or at least the one that you like to tell?
Curtis, do you have children? Do you have
I
children?
do. I have
Yeah.
two daughters. Yeah.
Can you tell me which one you like the best?
Well, of course not. No.
No. Look, there's a number of them that are outstanding. One that's kind of dangerous in a way is the Convoy of Hope, where a guy inspired by Mother Teresa took a bag of groceries and turned it into a operation now that's feeding 640,000 people all over the world and is at every site where there is a tragedy, a disaster. I hate to use him because none of us are going to be able to do that, as one of my friends said, but it's also about some woman that has an autistic child who decided she needed a place for that child to be when she aged and he aged. And so she went to her church and just, said, this is what I want to do. And the people there said, sure. Or the man who decided that, based on a dream of acquiring a parcel of land and building a church, a synagogue, and a mosque, people thought, well, that's the craziest thing. And 15 years later, voila, in Omaha, Nebraska, it's there. Or somebody that's just decided to teach kids how to read, or somebody who decided that these foster care programs were just not very welcoming and what they could do to improve it. I mean, it's anything. Is why I say it's a playbook. It's anything that you think that is a social issue or something that's pressing on your heart, that you got somebody to go to. You can do it. My first book that I ever wrote was called Courage is Contagious, and it was about regular people doing extraordinary things. And that was great. But I know that if you can go in a group, you're going to be a lot more effective and happy than if you do it alone.
Okay, so these are great stories of people who could look at them and feel like some inspiration or aspiration to be involved in their neighborhood, in their local public world,
Right.
with local institutions, perhaps. Okay, I get that. I'm just curious if I don't honestly know how many of these exist out there, but let's say
Thousands.
Yeah, no, but what I'm talking about though is if somebody wanted to get involved in politics, if there was a young Christian who, for whatever reason, I think they're a shrinking number, but let's say they're like, I want to get involved in politics. What advice would you give them?
Well, if it was a young person, my advice would be to go out and do something on your own and make something of yourself before you get into it. But if it's on your heart and this is what you really need to feel like you need to do, and you have a purpose for doing it other than it's entertainment or Hollywood or whatever, go for it. How do you do it? I mean, I started with zero, and I think in anything, wherever you are, be bold. Go in, approach the people who are the decision makers, let them get to know you, show them what you can do, whatever it is, including politics. I mean, ask for a meeting with the mayor.
Or ask for a meeting with Richard Nixon, like
Yeah,
you
I
did.
mean, you're 17 years old, you want to get involved, well, go down to the legislature. Say, I'd like to meet with somebody who got elected. I'd like to hear their story. I mean, what people don't want to do is they don't want to stick their necks out like that too much of the time, but you have to. Nobody's going to put it in your lap. You have to do a little bit of it and be bold. So somebody says, you say you want to go see the mayor, and the mayor's office says, well, he doesn't have time. You say, well, I'm going to come back again. I want to meet the mayor. I want to talk to the mayor. Mayor will let you in, but the mayor's not waiting for you to come and knock on his or her door. So if you're interested in it, go discover it, go see how it works, get involved in a political campaign, but most important, go get your education and go get a job and do something.
All right. Last question, Governor Kasich.
Yes, Curtis.
Probably the most consistent mail we get here on the podcast is people expressing one form of discouragement or the other in what's happening in our society. And they're asking, how do I still have hope amidst of what seems like an just, awful political situation? How would you answer those people?
Pick something to do. Read the book. Pick something you care about and engage in it. You will find that hope will come back to you. Pick a little common project. I mean, one of my friends just retired too early, his wife has told me. He's doing Meals on Wheels. He loves it. He loves Meals on Wheels. Let's say that you're there and you don't have a lot of hope, you're feeling discouraged. Well, why don't you just go visit the woman up the street who lost her husband and is lonely? Just go have a cup of coffee with her or take some donuts or whatever. Just do something. Don't sit around like, oh my God, what are we going to do? It's up to you. It's not up to somebody else. Let's take care of us ourselves. And I would say those people who send you mail, who listen to a podcast about faith, the Lord's given you a gift. Use it. It'll be amazing what you're going to find if you start to use it. You'll find satisfaction. You'll find some happiness. You'll find fun. That's what it's all about. Don't just sit there and, moan about things. And by the way, be patient with other people. And I've been in the arena, battling with everyone. But you know what? I've had a great time, a great career. I got a lot of friends, both sides, all philosophies. It's easy when you realize that everybody is made in the image of the Lord, and you just, get out there and meet them.
Governor Kasich, a great encouraging word. Thank you so much for coming on the Good Faith Podcast. Thank you for writing the book, Heaven Help Us, How Faith Communities Inspire Hope, Strengthen Neighborhoods, and Build the Future. Governor Kasich, thank you so much.
Curtis, you're a class act. Thank you, and good luck with your work. You're a really amazing guy as I've looked at your background and the people and you keep going and people keep listening. Give this man some support because he's going to lead you to the right place. Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you.